Welcome back to Spotlight Television. Joining me now is the chairman and CEO of Alliance Bioenergy, a publicly traded company. The CEO is Ben Slager. Ben, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for being here on Spotlight. And you guys have a really interesting story, really interesting technology in what I would consider a very quickly emerging market in biofuels. So tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I think we have a very interesting story. We developed the technology over the years, enabling us to make biofuels very cost effective. What biofuels do we make? We make bioethanol, we make jet fuel, we make biodiesel. Bioethanol is mixed into gasoline. Maybe not everybody knows, but if you look carefully at the pump, it says E15 or E10. That means there are 10 or 15% of ethanol in the gasoline nationwide. We make that ethanol in a different way than the present ethanol is made. Present ethanol is made mainly from corn. We make it from cellulosic waste. That same ethanol which comes out of there, we can still convert that further into jet fuel and biodiesel. The interesting thing is we do it very cost effective at the same or slightly lower cost than fossil fuels.
So explain exactly, I don't want to have you repeat what you just said, but explain for our viewers a little bit about exactly what is cellulosic waste, exactly what are you exactly doing?
Yes, cellulosic waste is, for example, paper, carton. If you look at municipal solid waste, you have a lot of facilities which separate that in glass fraction, metal fraction. One of the fractions is cartons and papers. That's cellulosic material. That is something we can convert into ethanol. Further to that, it's agricultural waste. So if you take the fruits of the agricultural, but the plants and the stalks and so on, that's also cellulosic. Wood, that's also cellulose. All those types of waste we use. We can also grow an energy crop like king grass. It grows up to 10 feet in warm places like Florida. Very, very efficient. We can convert that into sugars and lignin.
So you touched on it a little bit in your opening, but let's talk about exactly, so the fuels that you actually are making from this technology are what?
It is ethanol. And in our case, it's cellulosic ethanol. So the good thing is we make it at lower cost as the corn ethanol. Plus there are all kinds of CO2 credits and incentives on top of that. So for us, it is very interesting to do that. That ethanol is being converted into jet fuel and diesel. All airlines nowadays, they are going to be forced into use biojet fuel, or a percentage of their fuel is going to be biojet fuel. You see it legislation-wise, and of course the climate forces us to go in that direction as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about here as far as politically and some of the ramifications of what you're doing, the technology as it comes to CO2 emission, and that stuff we'll get into. But obviously, I said in my opening, you guys are a publicly traded company, and I think when investors look at a publicly traded company, look at the technology, obviously what you're applying, your core competency is great, but I think investors take a look and they say, well, what else can you do with this? Is there other things that this can apply to? Tell me about that.
Yeah. It's absolutely the case. So next to the fuels, we have the plastics. So the plastic we produce out of our lignin, that's another material coming out of the cellulose. It is, or out of the plant material, there's lignin and cellulose, so that cellulose is broken down into sugars and the lignin comes out of that too. That lignin we can convert into biodegradable plastics. So the plastics coming out of there are not only from biomaterial, but they're also biodegradable. That's a good thing, because now there is 10 million tons per year going in the ocean. If that would have been biodegradable, it would be gone within a year after entering the ocean. And that is extremely good. We live in a throwaway society nowadays. Everybody uses plastic cups, utensils. If you have a barbecue with your friends or neighbors, you have all those plastic cups. That's all going to be biodegradable instead of putting it into the garbage and burning it, and with all the pollution coming out of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, plastic straws is a big thing now you hear about all the time.
Nobody likes the paper straws, right?
No one does. No one does. Tell me a little bit about the technology, how you guys developed.
So basically we made it more efficient over the years, and now we have a very efficient technology. And why is it so efficient? Because it is uncomplicated. It uses very benign catalysts, so that's the only chemical we use. We don't need high temperatures or specific high pressures. It goes into a mechanical reactor, it reacts very quickly, and then it is converted. Unlike other processes where they use high pressure steam, acids, expensive enzymes with successively very long conversion times. So that leads eventually to the same result, but it takes more time, more raw materials, and it's going to be more expensive. And that is what's so charming about our process, is that it leads to products which are the same or lower priced than fossil fuel products or fossil fuel plastics.
I like the fact that you said it's uncomplicated. I like the way to say that, because I guess one of the main questions obviously is when you look at your technology, and maybe that's one part, uncomplicated, but what else do you think separates your technology from? There's a lot of players. There's some big players in this space. Some of the big oil companies you're seeing jump in this space. What about your technology do you think maybe separates you guys from some of the other players in this space?
Well, first of all, there are not so many players, and I welcome players in the market to co-develop the market, because it's a new market. If we look at the market as a whole, we see that in the US alone, we have enough feedstock in waste, say municipal solid waste, agricultural waste, and even we could grow energy crops on land which grows nothing at the moment, wasteland. So we would have enough feedstock to replace half of the fossil fuels. That's already a big step. The thing about our technology is, as I said, it's uncomplicated. It took us a couple of years to perfect it also. Other technologies lead to similar results, but lower capacities and higher prices. The oil companies traditionally have not looked into this so far. Initially they did, and that those technologies were not ready. So they weren't able to get, say, economical results, and then they kind of stepped out. And they might re-enter this space now, which I think would be a good thing, because we as a company, although we would like, we could never grow fast enough to take the market by ourselves. So if we have other companies doing a similar thing, that would only benefit the environment more.
Right, you would think, like you said, you would think competition in this space will be like many other spaces. It will drive technology, it'll drive innovation,
Absolutely.
Continue to develop.
Absolutely.
So let's have, and I don't want to have don't want to have a political discussion, because we know people fall on both sides of this, whether you believe climate change, man-made, what man is responsible for. We can have that discussion another time. But let's talk about your technology and how directly it affects CO2 emissions and that part of it.
I agree with you. You should not go into that discussion, but what I can say is that our technology has a reduction of, say, maybe 80 to 90% of CO2. How does that work?
Yeah.
If you get a fossil fuel, you pump it out of the ground, like oil. It is processed and it's burned, and all of that creates CO2, which adds on to the CO2 in the atmosphere. It stays there and it is there. It came out of the ground where it didn't create CO2, and now it's a lot of CO2 in the air. What we do is basically we use the CO2 which is used by a plant to grow. If that plant or the cellulosic waste decays, it will exhaust that, it will have the exhaust of the CO2 in the atmosphere anyway. What we do, we use that same CO2, same cellulose, we convert it into a fuel. If that fuel is burned, it creates some CO2, but that same CO2 is going to be absorbed by the same plant as from which we took it. So basically we're recycling the CO2.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the market size. Let's talk about the market, and let's talk about what part of the market you guys are targeting with this technology. So talk to me a little bit about all that.
Well, basically the market speaks a little bit for itself, Damon. It's a trillions of dollars market, all the fuels, the jet fuels, the diesels, where cars and trucks run on. The jet fuels is billions of gallons per year. The gasoline, it's hundreds of billions of gallons per year. Sure. That's the market which we enter to replace those fuels with green fuel. And then the plastic market is also very big. If you would just look at the amount of plastic cups, plates, utensils used and thrown away, we could never serve that market. So for us, it's a huge commodity market, and would encourage people to use our technology or even different technologies to solve that problem in the market and to replace that by biofuel, which is possible.
So obviously some of the other real innovation we're seeing when you reference obviously cars and gas and some of the other technology we're seeing really driven, Tesla in other words, is electric. So how are you guys a helping hand to electric? How do you guys fit in that space?
Well, how I see electrical cars is that an electrical car does not have emission, but the electricity stored in a battery came from your plug, from the net. That electricity needs to be generated. And in that generation, you create the CO2 just like any other conversion of fossil fuel. And besides that, an electric car is much heavier, uses more energy to go about, and the batteries are made of toxic materials. So if you look at the whole environmental balance, it's not so sensational. Maybe it's even not as good as a very efficient gasoline or diesel car.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about your background, how you got into this industry. Is this always where you were? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you might have heard it from my accent. I'm not from the US. I am actually from the Netherlands. I came to the US 3 years ago and was introduced to the company, and I was invited to become board member. My background is, I studied chemical engineering, I did a Master of Business, and I've been in developing technical companies my whole life, founding them, raising them, and then bringing them to the market. I've done that several times in the Netherlands, basically on different technologies. So I was introduced here. This is right into my sweet spot where I have my experience. And I developed the company from where it was to where it is now. Unfortunately, it needed some restructuring, so we replaced the management, restructured the finances. We did that through a Chapter 11 process, which is closed now, it's done. So we will exit out of that process in a couple of weeks, and then we're a healthy company to go to the market and develop our technology into commercial realization. And that's basically about myself and where we are with the company.
So obviously we learned a little bit about you, but tell me about the rest of the team at Alliance Bioenergy that you have. I know obviously you guys have a board of directors, and tell me a little bit about the corporate side of the business.
Yep, well, that's a very good question, Damon. Nobody can do things by itself, so it's always a teamwork, and I'm proud of that, and we have a very good team. I'm proud of the team. The people in our team are all seasoned professionals. They have decades-long experience, specifically in the industry or in adjacent industries, and have experience in building companies and of course in restructuring companies, which we have done. So that is a very good thing, and that's the basis of a whole company. A company needs a few things to be successful. That is a good market, a good product, but also the platform, a clean company to work from. And of course, last but certainly not least, is the team, the people who needs to do it. If the people wouldn't be there, nothing would happen. So that's the first step where every company starts with people with appropriate knowledge and appropriate experience. Yeah. We have that in place, so I feel very confident that we can move ahead right away.
So let's talk about the company. Obviously, you said just about to exit this restructuring, coming out clean, ready to go, technology ready to go. What's the roadmap now from here? Is it who do you target? Who are you approaching? How much public sector work is there to drive liquidity to the stock? Kind of show me the balance of what's the roadmap, let's say, next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah. So we will be building a commercial system to convert cellulosic material into ethanol. Besides that, we're going to convert ethanol into jet fuel and diesel right from the bat. That is basically the two paths which we will follow to start with. Our company is a listed company. The symbol is ALLMQ. The Q will disappear in a couple of weeks, and then we're a clean company. So by the time this interview is aired, it's probably already gone. So if people want to invest in it, they can look it up and buy the shares on the market. And we expect to have a commercial system ready in 18 months from now, and then we'll build a factory successfully to start producing those fuels.
So if someone wants to invest in Alliance Bioenergy, again, the symbol is?
ALLMQ. They have to go to their broker and ask them to buy the shares. It's listed on the OTCQB. The Q will be gone in a couple of weeks. Most likely when the interview is aired, it's going to be gone. We will be back to fully reporting status in soon after we exit the Chapter 11 situation. We're a clean company now, so that is a very good step to move ahead. And any investment going into the company will go directly to the process.
So what else do you want investors who are possibly going to look at the company, go look at some of your filings and look at what you're doing now and how you've cleaned it up and ready to move forward? What's the message to investors about the company, other than obviously you've been doing your due diligence, you cleaned up your structure, the technology is continuing to advance? Any other message to investors watching this?
Well, basically, if you have a good feeling with green energy, it's worthwhile investing. The very good thing, I think, is we do two things at the same time. We contribute to a cleaner environment, and we do it in such a way that it leads to products which are not more expensive, if not cheaper, than fossil products. So that gives you a very good feeling, plus it doesn't cost you more money. So there's no hesitation to support an initiative like this, a company like this, to grow as fast as possible, to execute that into the world as quickly as we can.
So obviously you've dedicated yourself to this for the last 3 or 4 years now. You've been fully invested in this company, cleaning it up, developing the technology. What excites you the most, or what do you like most? What excites you the most about when you think about your future the next couple of years and what you guys are going to do? What do you think about?
It excites me the most that I can contribute to a green solution to the environment, and that I can create wealth for investors and for shareholders, and also for people who buy the products. It is not more expensive, and that is the way we should be looking into the whole Green Deal, that we make products which are competitive with the fossil and the original products, whether it be plastic or energy or whatever. I don't think it works if it's going to be a lot more expensive. The technology is there. It is possible to do those things. So why not push that and try to help those companies more to get those type of technologies going forward ASAP.
Well, it's an interesting story. It's a great story. It's great technology in a big, huge market, which investors are going to love. Again, if you want more information on Alliance Bioenergy, the symbol is ALLMQ. It may not have the Q by the time you see this, ALLM. And if you want more information, you can go, of course, to otcmarkets.com and read up and look at this company's filings. Ben Slager, thank you so much for being here on Spotlight Television today, and best of luck in the next coming years.
Thank you, Damon, for being here.
Thank you very much. And we'll be right back.